Good afternoon and welcome to this week's LFS podcast with me, Caoimhan Ferris. It is week 4 of the new season and we're getting right into the groove of it, and the last week of the transfer window is here. The deadline closes on Friday. We'll be going through all the latest transfer stories and some big breaking news stories coming out this afternoon. Liverpool involved, Arsenal, we'll talk about Manchester United as well, Chelsea. Whenever there's transfers involved, Chelsea, they're always there or thereabouts. It seems also talk about some big breaking news this afternoon about Uruguay and Colombia after the Copa America final. We'll talk about that. And the scenes after that. Also, some sad news as well from South America. We'll get to that later on. And the Premier League as well. We'll round up last weekend's Premier League action and look ahead to this weekend and some exciting fixtures to come. So, a lot to get through over the next however long here on the LOS podcast this afternoon. My mouse is having a few issues, which is a perfect way to start the podcast for the afternoon. But let's get started then. And let's talk about transfers, because it is the last week of the transfer window, and we're not going to get a chance to talk about it after this. But the big story, of course, this afternoon is that man in the middle of the graphic there, Federico Chiesa, a Juventus player, Italian, 26-year-old Italian, and he looks to be going to Liverpool. Of course, the only club up until 24 hours ago yet to sign a player in the Premier League. Of course, Giorgio Marmadashvili, who we'll talk about a bit later on, has signed. Of course, will join at Liverpool in 2025, but this one is for this summer and for this window, and it looks like it will be done within the next 24 hours. It seems the player has travelled after Liverpool agreed a deal with Juventus earlier this afternoon. The confirmation did come through after literally about 24 hours ago. It was talked that Liverpool were inquiring about the situation for Federico Chiesa. That soon turned into Liverpool are interested in him, before soon after that Liverpool had a deal agreed. It seems like Liverpool's business of old, where we've seen them kind of get deals over the line in matters of hours, not long drawn out sagas that we've seen with other clubs in the Premier League in recent windows. Liverpool have seemed to have done really shrewd business and really quickly, and the media seem to get a hold of it when the deal is done. They don't really have that kind of play-by-play that you get with a lot of other transfers in the Premier League of this player's travelling here, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, literally second by second updates on the situation, whereas Liverpool seemingly getting the business done behind the scenes before any sort of news comes out about the player or the situation. The confirmation came around about 2.5 hours ago, around about 12:30 this afternoon, when it was confirmed that Liverpool had agreed a deal with Juventus for 13 million euros. That equates to 10 million pounds of an initial fee. With add-ons, of course, on top of that, around £2.5 million in add-ons. So a total package in pounds of £12.5 million. To put that into perspective, you look at what other clubs of Liverpool's level, or kind of in a similar level to Liverpool, chasing Champions League football or maybe even pushing for the league title, are pushing, and their transfer fees are way above that. It looks to be a really good deal. The reason as to why some people are touting that it is so cheap and it looks to be an absolute steal for Liverpool is the fact that, yes, £12.5 million. The reason it seems to be so cheap is because of Chiesa had 1 year left on his deal at Juventus. Juventus didn't want him to go on a free after they paid such big money for him a number of years ago, around £50 million they paid for him a number of years ago. So letting that player go on a free would be a massive kind of miscarriage from Juventus's point of view. So they've got a bit of money for him. It will be a 4-year contract for the player, and he has been flying in the last few hours to Merseyside to do all the full confirmations and the final deals, the final touches, and sign the contract officially as a Liverpool player, and then do the medical and things and so forth. But I'm sure announcements are to come very soon on that one. For Liverpool, of course, Liverpool fans have had a long time to wait for this, but it has come through. As I said, £10 million up front, £2.5 million on add-ons based on performances at the club. at the airport, Turin Airport, I believe it was, he was leaving from. Uh, he was caught by a few journalists, pictured coming out of a car, going into the airport, and he said, "I'm really happy and ready for this new adventure. I want to thank the Juventus fans. Thanks for all the affection over the years. I'll keep you in my heart. Thanks, Juventus. I'm really happy. Really, really happy. We can't wait, me and my family." Of course, the player seems very happy with it. Once it came through that Liverpool were interested, it looks like Chiesa was really up for the move from the very beginning. It looked like he had kind of shown Liverpool his appreciation and his want to join the club as quickly as possible. It looks like Liverpool are going to get that deal over the line. Now, this has come out of nowhere in the last 24 hours, but previously there was Barcelona who were involved in wanting to get Chiesa. They were also interested in him, but never got enough room on their wage bill, of course. With the very tight financial restrictions in Spain, Barcelona have had kind of trouble registering players. I mean, that's why Ilkay Gundogan is back at Manchester City. Struggled to register him at the club, and they would have to free up a spot for Federico Chiesa if he was to move. Of course, so Barcelona couldn't put down a fee, couldn't put down actually official talks with Juventus because they didn't have room in their squad to fit him in, even if they had got the deal over the line. There was also interest from Saudi Arabia, but that was, of course, really ended up fizzling out quite quickly. Once Liverpool's name entered the kind of arena, it looked like there was only one place that Federico Chiesa was going to. Of course, he joined Juventus on a permanent deal in 2022 after an initial 2-year loan from Fiorentina. He's made 98 appearances, scored 32 goals in all competitions, and 21 times in Serie A. So he certainly got a lot of goals to add to his list as well, which you want from a forward, of course. Chiesa also played a key role in at least Euros triumph back in 2021, where he was very heavily involved for Roberto Mancini's side, beating England at Wembley. Of course, that would be a big point, obviously. But of course, a lot of people have talked about his injuries. That it kind of makes it another maybe a concern from a Liverpool point of view. Of course, Liverpool haven't had the best record of injuries in the last year or two in terms of players getting injured quite consistently, and repeat injuries at that. But of course, Chiesa has had that big ACL injury, of course, which will be known to Liverpool fans. Virgil van Dijk getting that injury a few years ago as well, and has had a few niggly injuries. So injuries are a problem because he has missed quite a number of days through injury. Over 200 days he was out through that ACL, and of course over 400 days in total at his time at Juventus for injuries. So injuries have been a problem, but other than that, it looks to be a great steal for a player that was popped up to be one of the best upcoming talents in Europe of just a number of years ago. And Juventus got him at that point, and it looks like Juventus are going to be letting him go for around £10 million, and Liverpool are going to be the beneficiaries of that. Of course, any further updates we will certainly let you know. The deal was agreed in the last few hours. The player is flying to Liverpool, and we wait any further developments on that situation. Speaking of Liverpool, we'll get the Liverpool stuff out of the way pretty quickly. They got their first signing of the summer, albeit won't join the club until next year. They agreed to sign Georgia goalkeeper Giorgio Marmadasvili. He was at the club yesterday, getting that all done over the line, and deal worth up to £29 million from Valencia. The 23-year-old will join, subject to a work permit and international clearance, for a fee of £25 million plus £4 million in add-ons. Of course, however, he will remain with the La Liga club this season before moving to Merseyside for the start of the next campaign, the 25-26 campaign. Alisson, currently the Reds' first choice keeper, he will remain the first choice keeper, Alisson, with new manager Arne Slot. But of course, Caoimhan Kelleher is the second choice at Liverpool, and there could be a bit of jostling for position back come next summer, when possibly there could be a battle for the first place spot at Liverpool. Of course, Marmadasvili played 4 games in Georgia's 4 games at Euro 2024 before they were knocked out by the eventual winners, Spain, in the last 16. He's made 102 appearances for Valencia since joining them in 2021, and started both of their fixtures this season, both coming in defeats, albeit against Barcelona and Celta Vigo. So Mamardashvili will be joining Liverpool next summer. Chiesa seemingly joining this summer, but Liverpool aren't done there. There was a few reports coming out a bit earlier this afternoon, amongst other clubs, of possibly Mohamed Simikan, the RB Leipzig defender. A couple of clubs, including Newcastle, Barcelona, Saudi Arabia, and Liverpool, are all interested in this deal for the RB Leipzig man, who's under contract until 2027. But of course, a deal could be struck. RB Leipzig are willing to negotiate, but only for the right price. So it doesn't look like it will be a cheap buy for any club if they end up going for him. Of course, Newcastle have been in the market for a defender all summer. Mark Guehi was the big top target for Eddie Howe at Newcastle all summer. That has really gone cold in the last few days after they had 4 bids rejected from Crystal Palace. Never got to that £70 million that Crystal Palace were wanting, although there's about over 48 hours to go in the window. Anything can happen, and deadline day is always crazy as ever. You never know. Mark Guehi could be on the move just yet, but Newcastle in the mix for Mohamed Simikan. To Arsenal. And of course, this deal has been done yesterday. Mikel Merino completed the signing to Arsenal from Real Sociedad for a fee that could reach up to £31.5 million. The 20-year-old moves to North London on a 4-year contract with the option of a further 12 months after the Gunners agreed to pay an initial £27.4 million. Mikel Arteta said Mikel is a player who will bring us huge quality with his experience and versatility. Of course, Merino involved in the Spain squad that won Euro 2024, featured in all 7 games in the tournament, and of course scored that incredible extra time winner against Germany in the quarter-finals. So a big player, and adding to a couple of Spaniards that have joined this window for Arsenal. David Raya, of course, joining for Brentford. The Italian Riccardo Calafiori as well, making that move. Also, Arteta did say Mikel will make our squad significantly stronger with his technical ability, together with a strong and positive character and personality. As we all saw in the summer, Mikel is also a winner with his strong performances throughout the Euros, helping Spain win the tournament. Of course, be interested to see where Mikel Merino comes in. Of course, a few question marks over Thomas Partey in that Arsenal midfield. Could he deputise alongside Declan Rice in that midfield for Arsenal? Mikel Merino, we will see, but it looks to be a good deal for Arsenal. Mikel Merino, not a big name known across Europe until the summer, when he did make that pop-up appearance in the Euros quarter-final to score that wonderful goal against Germany. So a decent deal there for Arsenal. To Manchester United, where there's a couple of stories about Manchester United, and the first one is a midfielder they've been asking for quite a number of years now, and this one could be a good deal. They've agreed a £42.5 million fee with PSG of Manchester United for Uruguay midfielder Manuel Ugarte. The deal also includes a potential £8.5 million in additional payments, and it is, of course, Ugarte could fly to Manchester for a medical. Of course, there's a few details, a few differing reports on that situation, whether it was today or yesterday, still a bit up in the air, but the fee has been agreed, and it looks like he will be a Manchester United player at a decent fee as well, considering the amount of money that Manchester United have paid for midfielders. It's not only one coming in for United on that front in midfield. It looks like Scott McTominay will be heading out to Italy, which could help fund that fee. Ultimately, with £25.5 million switched to Napoli incoming, it could be for Scott McTominay. Of course, that could help fund this fee. Ultimately, Ugarte has been linked with United throughout the summer and is now poised to sign for the Old Trafford club just 1 year after joining PSG from Sporting for a reported £50 million. So Man United getting him for cheaper than what PSG paid just a year ago. He's 23 years old. Ugarte made 37 appearances for PSG last season, including 25 in the league, as PSG won their 12th Ligue 1 title. It is understood PSG have also negotiated a 10% sell-on clause for Ugarte, with both clubs privately claiming they are happy with the deal. McTominay, by the way, was due to travel yesterday for a medical to Napoli. Of course, he's done quite a lot for Manchester United, has Scott McTominay, but he's going out the door and one coming in. It looks like Man United are actually being run well this summer, because they're getting deals across the line, and deals that look worthy and properly decent opportunities for them to go for. They've spent over £200 million, but you know, good deals nonetheless. Doesn't mean success though. Speaking of success, one player that could be joining Manchester United also is that man on the right hand side of the graphic, Raheem Sterling. Now this has been a very fascinating story. It's one of our big shocks this summer so far. That's certainly one of the big shocks of the last 24 hours that has come through. It was reported yesterday that Chelsea and Manchester United were in talks over two separate deals for Jadon Sancho and Raheem Sterling. The possibility of Sancho signing for Chelsea and Sterling joining United is now being seriously considered. Chelsea's proposal to United was always going to involve a player moving the other way. It's thought that Ben Chilwell and Sterling were the players being offered, but it looks like Sterling is a better a better option that Manchester United want to take. Of course, we will see, despite the fact that Man United have had problems at left back through injury, but of course Chilwell's not the best record himself in terms of injuries, because he was really never much in it. But one interesting thing is Chilwell is not part of that big squad. He's been training away from the first team and seemingly not in Enzo Maresca's plans at Chelsea. That's probably why he was offered up. He was Chelsea's vice-captain last season, so Enzo Maresca certainly putting kind of the baby out of the bathwater, as they say. There's all these different types of phrases, but certainly upsetting the apple cart at Chelsea. And Chilwell, one of them. Raheem Sterling, a bigger one. I think it's been very disrespectful the way that Raheem Sterling's been treated in that sense. But it looks like he could become that iconic FIFA figure, that fan that you always see in the FIFA celebrations, celebrating the exact same person, celebrating for very different clubs. It looks like Raheem Sterling could fit that mould. He's played at Liverpool, came through at Liverpool as a youngster, then joined Manchester City, then joined Chelsea, and now looks to be heading to Manchester United. I don't think he'd be the most popular, because he has played for Man United's two biggest rivals in terms of Manchester City and Liverpool, but you never know. But that is an interesting one. Though Sancho is another one, could go the other way to Chelsea. I don't think Chelsea need more players. I don't think there's any need for Chelsea to sign anybody else, because it looks like they've got enough in the forward areas. But it's Chelsea. I genuinely think Todd Bowley has got a transfer addiction. I think he looks at newspapers, I think he looks at headlines and transfer kind of reports all throughout the days and weeks and thinks, well, that's a good player, get him in. And they do anything possible to get them in. It seems to be Chelsea's model at the minute. Get players in no matter what, and we'll scrap the players that we've spent big money on the last few windows, but just because the manager doesn't like them right now, we're going to have to sell them all off. And they do have to sell a number of players, because 40 odd players is far too many for Chelsea. But that Jadon Sancho and Raheem Sterling situation is one to keep a very, very close eye on over the next few days, because that could develop into something much, much bigger over the next few days. I did mention earlier on about Mohamed Simikan. This is the full details. It's Sky in Germany, Florian Plettenberg reporting this, that Newcastle are interested in signing RB Leipzig defender Mohamed Simikan. Barcelona and Liverpool have also inquired about the 24-year-old, while there is interest in him from Saudi Arabia as well. Leipzig are understood to be willing to negotiate for Simikan, who is contracted to the Bundesliga club until the summer of 2027. So that was the full report, basically, saying there could be other details. One other one that I want just to bring you is Southampton are remaining in discussions over the potential signing of Arsenal goalkeeper Aaron Ramsdale. They're not close to an agreement, but of other options they are pursuing. The clubs have been in talks for some time, although the Saints have discussed the numbers again today. They are not nearing an agreement, contrary to reports elsewhere. Southampton have as many as 4 or 5 other goalkeeper targets they're working on, with Ramsdale's valuation at Arsenal still too high for them to reach. Of course, Ramsdale is also on a big wage at the Emirates. He signed a new contract in May of last year, and that runs until 2026. So Aaron Ramsdale still trying to push out a move, because it doesn't look like he's going to be in Mikel Arteta's future in terms of first choice at Arsenal. He wasn't for the majority of last season, barely could get into the side last season. And it looks like that will be a similar um, situation there. Right, some other big news to tell you just before we move on to some other stories. Brentford have announced the signing of £10 million. £10 million signing of Gustavo Nunes from Gremio, an initial 6-year contract with a further 2 years option for Gustavo Nunes. And one interesting one, Sky in Italy have said Napoli striker Victor Osimhen is being offered £25 million a year to join Al Ahly on a 4-year deal with the Saudi club. Of course, the player's agent is set to have a meeting with the sporting director of the Saudi Pro League teams in Italy. If it is accepted by Osimhen, they will look to reach an agreement with Napoli. Of course, the Saudi Pro League window closes on Monday, so a few days after the window in the UK closes. So that could be a nice battle, or the window across Europe, sorry, closes. So that could be an interesting battle over the coming days. But Chelsea have been looking for him. Chelsea are looking for everybody, so that's not a massive story, nonetheless. Right. That's the transfer latest. Of course, we'll keep you up to date if anything changes on all of those stories. The Federico Chiesa one is the top story, is the big story of the day, that Liverpool could be signing Federico Chiesa. The clubs have agreed a deal. It looks like the contract has been agreed as well on a 4-year deal, and also. Of course, the player is flying to Merseyside, so it seems to be only a matter of time before he is seen in red and white. We will see. Of course, right. Moving on to other stories, still involving Liverpool and amongst Uruguayan players. I did mention about that Copa America semi-final back in July. Liverpool forward Darwin Nunez has been banned for 5 international games for an altercation with spectators after his national team Uruguay were beaten by Colombia. Nunez was seen physically confronting Colombia fans in the stands after the final whistle in the Copa America semi-final. The player has also been fined $20,000, that's £15,000. South American football's governing body, CONMEBOL, issued a statement on Wednesday stating 5 players had been banned, including Nunez, and 11 fined for their part in the altercation. Tottenham midfielder Rodrigo Bentancur has received a 4-game ban. Napoli defender Mateus Oliveira, Barcelona defender Ronald Araujo, and Atletico Madrid defender Jose Maria Jimenez have also received 3-game bans. Of course, they opened the investigation, CONMEBOL, after that whole kind of scuffle broke out back in July, and that is now the outcome. No club bans, by the way, only for international games. So Nunez will not miss a single Liverpool game, nor will Rodrigo Bentancur miss a Tottenham game, or any of those players. Those game bans are international only for that. So Uruguay will be affected, none of the clubs. Right. To some sad news coming out of South America in the last few hours. Nacional defender Juan Izquierdo has died after collapsing on the pitch during a Copa Libertadores match earlier this month with an irregular heartbeat. The 27-year-old Uruguayan suffered a cardiac arrest after collapsing during Nacional's game against Sao Paulo on the 22nd of August. Izquierdo had been receiving treatment at the Albert Einstein Hospital in Sao Paulo, and Nacional initially described his condition as stable. However, his condition worsened in recent days, and the Uruguayan side posted on X, "It is with the deepest sorrow and shock in our hearts that the club Nacional announces the death of our beloved player Juan Izquierdo. We express our most sincere condolences to his family, friends, colleagues and loved ones. All of Nacional is in mourning for his irreparable loss." On hearing the news, spokesperson for Brazilian side Sao Paulo said it was a sad day for football. Inter Miami striker Luis Suarez said, "Pain, sadness, it is hard to explain. May he rest in peace. I wish a lot of strength for his family and friends." The FIFA president, Gianni Infantino, added, "I'm deeply saddened to learn of the tragic passing of Uruguayan footballer Juan Izquierdo. On behalf of FIFA and the entire footballing community, I would like to express my sincere condolences to his family and friends, RIP." Izquierdo was put on a ventilator on Sunday and had been under neurological care since Monday. The defender was a half-time substitute for former Liverpool defender Sebastian Coates during his side's match with Sao Paulo. And everyone at LFS wishes the player and his family and friends the very, very best. Sad news there. Moving on to the Premier League then. So we've talked through transfers involving Premier League clubs. It's now has to talk about on the field stuff with the Premier League. The second match week of Premier League, the new Premier League season got underway at the weekend, and we saw some big results on Saturday afternoon all the way through to Sunday, and some big results involving some huge clubs in the Premier League, some shock results as well, and we're going to talk through them right now, because there's some fascinating ones. Let's just run you through them then. These are the 10 results from the weekend. Brighton beat Manchester United 2-1 at the Amex on Saturday lunchtime. West Ham got a win in a London derby away to Crystal Palace. Palace 2 defeats in 2 to start the season. Fulham made up for their defeat at Old Trafford on match day 1 with a 2-1 win against Leicester. Man City ended up beating Ipswich 4-1. Ipswich took the lead through their new signing Sammy Schmonics, but a hat-trick from Erling Haaland and a Kevin De Bruyne finish saw City emerge for 4-1 winners. Southampton beaten again by 1-0. This time Nottingham Forest were the team to beat the Saints, and the Saints don't have a happy hunting ground of their own home ground in Premier League terms in the last few years, and that seems to be continuing. 1-0 defeats back-to-back for Russell Martin's side. Tottenham made it a dismal start to the new season for Everton, who made their worst start to a top-flight campaign at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Aston Villa were beaten by Arsenal after Aston Villa done the double on Arsenal last season. Arsenal have already got their revenge in their first meeting of the campaign. Bournemouth seemingly robbed of a win against Newcastle. Chelsea were 6-2 winners away at Wolves, and Liverpool made it 2 wins out of 2 on their new manager Arne Slot as they beat Brentford 2-0 at Anfield. Right, we're going to start with that lunchtime kickoff on Saturday, Brighton against Manchester United, and that big kind of crazy game ultimately in the end. Brighton opened the scoring in the first half, of course. Former Manchester United forward Danny Welbeck scored his 100th club career goal to give Brighton the lead. Ahmad then equalised for United. United thought they'd taken the lead when Alejandro Garnacho struck, and it came off the knee of Xerxes into the nets they thought would have made it 2-1 to United, but Xerxes was in an offside position when he touched the ball, so the goal was disallowed before Brighton's 95th minute hero João Pedro scored the ultimate winner, a header at the back post. It is now meant that Manchester United have conceded more goals in the 90th plus minutes under Erik ten Hag than they did previously under any manager combined in the Premier League era. They had conceded just two late winners plus after 90 minutes in Premier League history until Erik ten Hag's time, where they have conceded quite a lot more in that front. So that is a dreadful result for Manchester United. A great result for Fabian Hürzeler and Brighton. I don't think United were too bad in the game. I caught bits and pieces of the game. I didn't see the full 90 minutes, but I caught bits and pieces of it. And what I gathered from it was United weren't half bad in the game, weren't really kind of linking as well as probably what they could have with their new signings. It looked like Harry Maguire again for that the first Brighton goal. It looked really weak, really simple, not dealing with crosses, which has been one of Man United's biggest problems over the last number of years. Not dealing with crosses. I mean, it's one of many big problems that Manchester United have had over the last few years, but that was certainly one of their biggest, and they ultimately paid the price for that. It means Brighton have now beaten Manchester United 4 of the 5 times that they have played Manchester United under Erik ten Hag. That is incredible. Brighton, one of the Brighton fans I did spot after the game said there are only 3 things in life that are guaranteed: death, taxes and beating Manchester United. And for Brighton fans, I mean, could you have wrote this a number of years ago? Having an incredible kind of run against one of the biggest clubs in Europe. It's great for Brighton fans, and a great 3 points for them. That's 6 points out of 6 to start the new campaign. The new manager, the youngest ever Premier League manager, 31-year-old Fabian Hürzeler, getting off to a fabulous start. 2 wins in the league, and of course Brighton won comfortably last night at home in the Carabao Cup as well. So a perfect start to the new campaign. Well, speaking of sides that made up for performances. West Ham had to make up for their defeat on match day 1 in that battle at the London Stadium under new manager Julian Lopetegui, who got his first win as West Ham manager away at Crystal Palace. Sellers Park has witnessed their side now lose 2 games on the bounce in the Premier League under Oliver Glasner. In that one, lost in a derby on match day 1 away at Brentford before losing at home to West Ham. Palace losing back-to-back games under Oliver Glasner to start the season. Not a perfect start, not a great start to the season for Crystal Palace. But their summer's been mainly about trying to keep their players, basically, with Mark Guehi being linked with many moves away. Joachim Andersen, one of their big defenders of last season, also moving on. He moved on to Fulham, which we watched last night in the Carabao Cup. Did Joachim Andersen. They're trying to keep a hold of the likes of Eze as well. And Adam Wharton's been linked with moves away. So Palace have a lot of troubles off the field to fix in terms of keeping their players before the window closes. But on the field, it's certainly not going joyful for them either. The goals came. One of them I do know came from Jared Bowen. And I'll find you the other one in a second. It was Thomas Souček. I do remember it now. Thomas Souček and Jared Bowen scoring within 5 minutes of each other to secure that victory for West Ham United. Julian Lopetegui's first as the West Ham manager, and 3 points certainly needed for the Hammers, who could be competitive this season. These two could be competing for places in the top half, Crystal Palace and West Ham. And that could be a big 3 points going the Hammers' way. Speaking of big 3 points, Fulham got their first win of the season against Leicester City. Newly promoted Leicester, who held Tottenham to a 1-1 draw at the King Power just 5 days earlier. They couldn't hold Fulham this time round, beaten 2-1 at Craven Cottage. Fulham took the lead through their record signing Emile Smith-Rowe. Fight fast then levelled for Leicester before Fulham were back in front. Alex Iwobi scoring the ultimate winner for the Cottagers. Of course, they followed that up with a Carabao Cup win last night, 2-0 away to Birmingham City. So Fulham looking to get off the mark in the league and in the Cup, of course. And 3 points for Fulham certainly duly needed after that 1-0 defeat to Manchester United. But I'd say Fulham are one of those teams where this season a lot of people didn't think they were going to do much business, not going to do very much, not going to kind of threaten anybody really in the Premier League. I think losing close to Manchester United would have given them a lot of confidence, keeping Man United tight, and could have got a draw out of that one on match day 1, and then ultimately winning that one at the weekends, getting the first win. A home win against the newly promoted side is probably more expected, but you never know. Nothing's ever guaranteed in the Premier League, and Fulham getting that big 3 points. For the champions, they kept their 100% record intact after their 2-0 win away at Chelsea in match day 1, followed up by a big win against newly promoted Ipswich at the Etihad. It wasn't all plain sailing though for Pep Guardiola's side, as they went 1-0 down in that one. Ipswich took the lead through Sammy Szmodics, their new signing, joined from Blackburn in the summer, and Ipswich looking to kind of, in a sense, they angered Manchester City because no sooner were they ahead than they found themselves 3-1 down. This is crazy. Ipswich scored in the 7th minute, and by the 16th minute, 9 minutes later, they went from 1-0 up to 3-1 down. 3 Manchester City goals in the space of 4 minutes secured it. 12th minute penalty from Erling Haaland, a 14th minute strike from Kevin De Bruyne before Haaland made it 2 for him in the 16th minute and made it 3 for Manchester City. He added a 4th and got his hat-trick, Erling Haaland, in the 88th minute to seal the deal. Manchester City 4-1 winners. A convincing win ultimately for the champions, but I'd say a clean sheet would have been an even better point for them, albeit 3 points is all that matters early in the season, and Pep Guardiola knows that his side won't be at their very best and probably till the second half of the season, as they always do at Manchester City. But it did kind of, I wouldn't say, I mean, they weren't behind for very long, 4 minutes, if that, before the penalty was given, but in the end, it's certainly not something you want to see, your side going behind and having to come back, albeit they made it look very easy, something they don't want to make a habit of, and I'm sure Kieran McKenna will be happy that his side took the lead, ultimately ended up losing 4-1, but they'll take positives out of playing Liverpool and Manchester City, and at least getting their first goal of the new Premier League campaign for them, their first in 22 years. To the south coast, where it was a much closer affair between Southampton and Nottingham Forest, two sides that have been pipped for relegation. Southampton, newly promoted, looking pipped to be heading straight back down, and Forest, amongst many, have been thought to be going down with them. But it looks like Nottingham Forest have edged it and got the spoils in the end at St Mary's. Morgan Gibbs-White, with the only goal of the game, secured the 3 points for Nottingham Forest, who have started the season unbeaten. A 1-1 draw against Bournemouth last week and followed up by a 1-0 win against Southampton. Two sides they probably should be very competitive against at the very least, Nottingham Forest. But getting 4 points out of a possible 6 from their first two games is a very good start to the season for Nuno Espirito Santo's side, who, as I said, need to be getting points on the board if they want to prove themselves as being above that relegation battle for this season. For Southampton, though, albeit 1-0 defeats, they really offered little to nothing in the game against Nottingham Forest. They had 65% possession to Southampton, but they had 5 shots, just 1 on target against Forest. Compare that to Nuno's side, who had 35% possession, but with 23 shots, 8 of them on target. So certainly one side was threatening a lot more, and it could have been even more to Forest, but one was to be in the end. It didn't look like Southampton were going to score, and they're one of only 2 sides yet to score in the Premier League season. And the next side we're going to talk about is the other, Everton, who were left with a drubbing leaving the capital on Saturday, as Tottenham got their first win of the season after being held to a 1-1 draw against Leicester. They certainly added the goals that they could have scored in that game at the King Power and put them all on Everton. Yves Bissouma opened the scoring for Tottenham after his ban on match day 1 after that whole incident with Ange Postecoglou. Hans then joked after the game. He says, if we're going to keep banning him, if he's going to keep getting goals, we'll ban him every week, every other week, so we can keep getting on the score sheet. Son then doubled Spurs' lead with a terrible mistake from Jordan Pickford. Christian Romero made it 3 before in the second half Son added his second to make it 4 for Spurs. Heung-min Son on the score sheet twice there, and always has been delivering for Spurs over the years that he's been there and continues to do so. The captain, of course, of Tottenham. For Everton, their worst start to a league campaign ever in the club's history, conceding 7 goals without reply, still yet to score a goal in the league this season. Sean Dyche's side did win last night in the Carabao Cup, which is a bit of a positive, but if it doesn't improve in the league, could turn very sour very quickly. If you did see those images that were released on social media of the Everton fans shouting at their own players at Euston Station in London, heading back up to Merseyside on Saturday evening. Not something you want to see after just 2 games of the season. The Everton fans seemingly already turning on their players. To Villa Park, and Villa couldn't score against Arsenal, albeit they had many's a chance to score, with Ollie Watkins having 2 glorious opportunities to give Villa the lead. He completely missed the target on one, and with a diving header, with a wonderful save by David Raya to deny him for the second, but it was Arsenal who took the 3 points in the end. Leandro Trossard, coming off the bench and arguably with his first touch of the game, gave Arsenal the lead before Thomas Partey doubled Arsenal's lead, and they left Villa Park with all 3 points and a clean sheet, neither that they could take away from Villa Park in their visit last season. Villa, as I said, done the double over Arsenal, including a 1-0 win at Villa Park. Arsenal didn't score against Villa in either of the 2 Premier League games yet last season. They've broken that duck this season already, got their revenge, and another 3 points, a big 3 points, let's say, because Aston Villa away is going to be a tough one for anybody this season, and especially a title challenger. Playing so early, that'll be a masterstroke from Arsenal's point of view. A big 3 points that will seemingly become bigger as the season goes on, and its importance, I'm sure, will increase with the difficulty of heading to Villa Park and getting results. That concluded Saturday's action, but Sunday left us with even more drama. Bournemouth and Newcastle in the early game on Sunday afternoon saw it a 1-1 draw, but a lot of Bournemouth fans, including the Bournemouth manager Andoni Iraola, thought it should have been 2-1 to Bournemouth after Bournemouth's late winner was disallowed for handball on the Bournemouth player. Still about what is it now, 4 days later, I'm yet to see anybody that has agreed with that decision other than the referees and the officials, because it's just not handball. I argued it on Sunday. I'll continue to argue the situation for Bournemouth. It's a terrible decision. VAR shouldn't have got involved, and I'm just echoing what other people have said, because Bournemouth should have won that game. Newcastle lucky to get away with it in the end. They were, again, not very good. They weren't great against Southampton in match week 1, and they weren't very great there, and lucky to come away with anything out of that one. They have somehow scripted 4 points from their first 2 games and not performing at their very best at all, Newcastle. Harvey Barnes looks a real big threat for them. He came on and offered a lot. He actually set up the equalising goal for Anthony Gordon. But if Harvey Barnes doesn't start, he'll be asking questions. He's threatening, and he is certainly impacting for Newcastle. And if he doesn't start, there'll be questions being asked. From a Bournemouth point of view, another positive. Ultimately, it's a point in the end. Although it will feel like 2 points dropped in terms of they should have got that win, but ultimately they'll take it and they'll move on. 2 1-1 draws to start the season for Bournemouth. They've played very well in both games, and one man who should be very happy with the start of the season is Antoine Semenyo. A goal in his first game at Bournemouth last weekend, and an assist for Marcus Tavernier this weekend. He started the season well, and he could be a very bright spark for Bournemouth. Keep an eye on him for this season, Antoine Semenyo. In terms of players that had a lot of drama to talk about, was Noni Madueke. Now, this is a story you don't hear very often, at all. I mean, Chelsea scoring 6 goals is something you never hear of very often, but they were bound to score at one point. They did. Ultimately, Wolves were the team that were on the end of that at the weekends. Ultimately a freak result, considering Chelsea, their XG was actually less than Wolves in that game. Both sides overperforming their XG, just over 1 for both teams. Wolves scoring 2, Chelsea scoring 6. All 4 of those 6 Chelsea goals coming in the second half, including a Noni Madueke hat-trick. Now this is a big story, because Noni Madueke, before the game, put on his social media, "Everything in this place is shit," on his Instagram story before the game, then took it down and apologised for saying that it was put on the wrong account. So he didn't retract the statement, he just said he didn't mean to put it on his public account, and on his private account he meant to do in the end. So he did say that everywhere in Wolves was shit. I don't know, I've never been to Wolverhampton, I've no idea. But one thing that Wolves fans certainly made it clear to him that he was not welcome in Wolves, and they booed him throughout the game, but didn't affect his performance because he got a hat-trick in the end, his first career hat-trick for Noni Madueke. If he does that every weekend, certainly Chelsea be hoping that he says everywhere that Chelsea go is shit. If he continues those performances. Wolves beaten 6-2. Not a great start to the season for Wolves, beaten by Arsenal and beaten by Chelsea, but 2 very tough fixtures, albeit one at home against a pretty crazy Chelsea side, and this just goes to add to the point. 6-2 away from home for Chelsea after losing 2-0 to Manchester City last week, when they probably could have got something out of that. Shows how crazy the club is from one end to another in terms of the spectrum of good and positive results to negative. Wolves, 2 defeats out of 2 to start the season. They will build upon that, but it looks to be tough to start the campaign for Gary O'Neill and his side. To the final game of the Premier League weekend, a much more comfortable victory for Liverpool against Brentford. 2 wins from 2, 4 goals, none conceded, 2 clean sheets, 6 points. There's literally nothing going wrong with Arne Slot and Liverpool at this moment in time. It looks to be a breeze. It looks like Jurgen Klopp hasn't been replaced. It doesn't look like there's a new regime at all at Liverpool. It just seems like it's a seamless transition between the 2 managers. And it doesn't look like any hiccups at all for Liverpool, albeit still very early in the season. But 2 wins from 2 against sides, yes, they probably should be beating in Ipswich and Brentford. But the way they played, I mean, there was a stat that came out after the game at Anfield on Sunday. 92% passing accuracy for Liverpool, their highest ever since records began in 2003-04. If that's something to build upon, if that's only the start, I mean, who knows what's going to come next under Arne Slot. 2 games from 2 wins out of 2 for Arne Slot, but the control and the dominance they showed against Brentford, and ultimately the goal scorers. Diogo Jota certainly starting the season well with Liverpool, setting up Luis Diaz's first goal before Mo Salah, as he did last week against Ipswich, scored the second to seal the deal. They could have had more, Liverpool, but the difference, one thing that I will point out just before we move on, is the fact that the difference between first halves and second halves, they certainly, whatever is said at half time, it gets Liverpool going, and the second half certainly have been the better than both first halves to start the campaign. But it doesn't matter, because Liverpool are 2 wins from 2. And that is match week 2. A quick roundup of the table before I look ahead to this weekend. Man City sit top of the tree once again on goal difference, ahead of 3 other sides that started the campaign with 2 wins from 2. Brighton, Arsenal and Liverpool, all with 100% records, with only 2 sides yet to concede this season, both Arsenal and Liverpool. In 5th is Tottenham, Newcastle and Forest. Those 3 sides unbeaten to start the season, and then a mixed bag for a number of sides as well. Chelsea, West Ham, Fulham, Manchester United, Villa and Brentford, all 1 win and 1 defeat to start the campaign. Bournemouth on 2 points, Leicester on just 1 point, and the 5 sides below Leicester all yet to get off the mark. Southampton, Crystal Palace, and then the bottom 3 of Ipswich, Wolves and Everton, all yet to get a point this season, with Southampton and Everton the only 2 sides yet to score. Right, looking ahead to this weekend then, a couple of interesting fixtures to point out for you. I'll run you through them. Saturday lunchtime sees Arsenal welcome Brighton. 2 sides that have started the season perfectly well, 100% records. One of them is going to go at the weekend, at least one of them, that is. A draw would certainly wouldn't be a positive for either side, but Arsenal hoping to make it 3 wins out of 3. Brighton the same. We'll see if they can do. Then the Saturday 3 o'clock kickoffs. Brentford take on Southampton. Everton welcome Bournemouth to Goodison. Fulham head to Ipswich. Leicester welcome Aston Villa. That's going to be a good battle. And Wolves head to Nottingham Forest. Some close battles in those Saturday 3 o'clockers. Then on the Saturday evening game, West Ham welcome Manchester City to the London Stadium. Another tough game for Manchester City away from home there, but if they continue their form in the capital, they will certainly cruise to victory there. And you never know, Julian Lopetegui's side look competitive. We'll see. And then Sunday afternoon we watch Newcastle take on Tottenham. That's a good battle on Sunday, followed with Chelsea Crystal Palace in a London derby. That's also at 1:30 before the big crescendo to the 3rd match week of the new season sees Liverpool in action again, and they head to Old Trafford, a rivalry of old and new. Manchester United taking on Liverpool Sunday 4 o'clock. That is certainly to be a one not to miss. So, the Premier League weekend delivering once again. Lots of big results and lots of big fixtures to come. So, just to remind you before we go, of course, this afternoon, because that is us rounded up. The Premier League has been rounded up. All the biggest transfer stories have also been rounded up, and that is this week's LFS podcast. But to remind you of the big story today is that Liverpool have agreed a deal to sign Italian attacker Federico Chiesa from Juventus for around £10 million, an absolute steal for the Merseyside club, and we will see confirmation of that coming very, very shortly. It may not be done yet. Of course, we will update you of any big transfer stories on Friday, because transfer window closes on Friday. It's deadline day on Friday. Any big stories that will develop will be live here on LFS for those for you, so do keep an eye and your ear to the ground, as they say. And LFS podcast is available on audio platforms. If you want to listen back to the whole show again or on the go, you can now on audio platforms, Spotify and Amazon Music. They will be available shortly after the show has finished. Right, let's just tell you what's coming up then on LFS over the next few days. We have a couple of ads to do for you. Tonight, the Carabao Cup continues the second round as we watch the old Premier League tie amongst 6 other ties as Nottingham Forest welcome Newcastle to the City ground. That is an 8 o'clock kickoff tonight on LFS. Plus, after the full-time whistle at the City ground, we will complete the 3rd round draw for you. A few stipulations on that. and we'll give you the full details of the third round draw and all of its happenings when we go live a bit later on. Tomorrow, another draw to keep your eye on is the Champions League draw. We'll be live tomorrow from 5 as the Champions League draw gets underway. A new season, a new format of the Champions League, a 36-team league. We'll give you all the stipulations of the new Champions League format tomorrow. That's 5 for the first ever new format of draw. We have no idea what's going to happen. We're just going to follow it as it happens, and we'll see what happens tomorrow from 5. Before on Friday night, more live action for you as Luton take on QPR in the Championship. That's on Friday night at 8 o'clock. That's it for this week's LFS podcast. Thanks you very much for listening and watching this afternoon, and we'll be back next week. We'll also be back with transfer updates on Friday as well for you on deadline day. For now, thanks for your company. Bye-bye.